What's up, castaways? Miles away here. Welcome back to another Friday video. So as many of you guys know, I'm working on an awesome comparison of some of the coolest delay pedals on the market. Now, due to shipping delays, this is taking a bit longer than expected, but I promise it's coming at the end of March, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime though, it has given me some extra time to dive into some of these pedals in a lot more detail than I normally would. One pedal in particular, the Meris Polymoon, has been an incredible inspiration for me and actually got me thinking about a question I've been asked a couple times, and that's why do I love effects pedals so much over software plugins? Now, the Meris Polymoon, I think, can help us answer this question because it's such a good example of what it is that I love about a good effects pedal over a plugin. And that is when a pedal is designed extremely well and intuitively, it stops being an effect and becomes an extension of your instrument for sound design. So let's dive into the Meris Polymoon, take a tour of the pedal, and hopefully by the end of this video, you guys can see what I mean. As always, before we begin, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe, consider sharing the content. It really helps the channel grow and I appreciate it. Let's get started. Alright, so here we have the Polymoon. Now on the surface, the Polymoon seems like a pretty straightforward delay pedal with a couple of cool tricks, but diving deep under the hood, this thing is a total beast for sound design, and its incredibly intuitive controls really highlight what I was talking about earlier about leading me to create some unique sounds that I maybe wouldn't create normally on a plugin. So let's dive on in with a sequence and see what this thing can do. So I've got this sequence here from the Modal Cobalt 8. Let's bring in some delay. So we've got a basic delay here. We've got our time. Our feedback. And our mix, of course. Straightforward delay controls. Let's tap in the tempo here. There you go. Awesome, so where the pedal starts to get interesting is on the bottom row here. So with Multiply, we can set the number of delay taps added to the output, which creates a really interesting stereo field. There we go, that's already sounding awesome. This kind of control over the specific delay taps and creating interesting rhythms inside the stereo spectrum already creates a really interesting and inspiring delay for me that creates rhythms that I probably wouldn't think of if I was trying to stack specific delay pedals or punch this on a plugin. Listen to how that interacts with the riff we're writing. Awesome. Now, here, Dimension, what it'll do is it'll actually smear those delay taps together and regenerate them, which can do everything from a subtle kind of granular delay all the way to pretty much full-on reverb. Beautiful, really spacey. I've gotten some pretty interesting experimentations by playing with the Dimension and the Multiply together. A mono reverb. There's a sweet spot where it's still delay, but it's starting to smear and become a little bit like reverb that I just absolutely love. That sounds great. Now the dynamics controls the intensity and the depth of the flanger, and we'll get to that in a second. But moving below is one of my absolute favorite things with the Polymoon, which is something that I would just, rarely think to use with a plugin, but having it right here in front of me makes me use it all the time. And that is a stereo barber pole phaser. So this barber pole phaser is only being applied to the delay and not the dry input, because I don't love phasers on my sounds, but on the delay, it creates an incredible washy, spacey texture that is really unlike anything I've ever heard. Let's check it out. That's a vibe. Just recording a little automation there. Cool. So we can either sync this phaser to our tap tempo to enhance the rhythm, or we can have it be slow and washy, which I like, or we can sync it while keeping it slow. That sounds pretty great to me. Now, just like any instrument that is hands-on, the Polymoon does have a little bit of a learning curve to learn the alternative functions, which are not labeled, but you get to them by holding down Alt and twisting the knob. So here, we're going to add in some early modulation of the pitch of the delay by modulating the time knob Alt function. We can do everything from just subtle, really beautiful modulation to full-on madness. This is a pretty common way of getting what would be kind of similar to a shimmer sound, which can work really well on high up pitches, low down riffs and ideas that normally wouldn't deal with delay too well because of the buildup of low frequencies. Lost in the sound. I personally love it for subtle early pitch modulation. That's beautiful. Let's tweak the envelope a little bit here. Awesome, that's sounding great. Now, the Alt function of the feedback is basic but useful, which has either a low pass filter for the delay, or much more useful in my opinion, a high pass filter. Now, as a sound designer, it's incredibly important to not let your effects have a buildup of low frequencies. So I'm really happy that they included a filter, which sounds great. Let's use this very subtly around 1 o'clock. That way we can get ahead with having nice warm bass from our dry signal and letting the Polymoon kind of just wash behind it. The Alt function for the mix is just extra gain for the wet signal, if you want to trim it while keeping your dry signal intact. And then the Alt function for the multiply is going to be essentially late modulation for the pitch of the delay, which will affect the further on taps down the line. Now this is really cool, and you can do some really crazy things with it because we're essentially affecting the later delay taps. And again, we can do, subtle pitch modulation on one, FM on the other, octave up, sparkling shimmer on one, subtle pitch modulation on the other. The combination of the two is really special. So let's check that out. That's so cool. Imagine this with a kick, like right there. It's a vibey minimal track. I'm gonna turn this off for now, but it's an amazing feature I use regularly. Ooh, actually that sounded really good with some pitch modulation in the subtle slow. Ooh, that's nice. There you go, right there. I found something that I wasn't meaning to. I don't know about you guys, but I could just listen to this all night. Awesome. Okay, let's move on before I spend 20 minutes doing that. Okay, so next up, the alternative function for the dimension. Now, this is where we get into the dynamic flanger, which we haven't even touched on yet. Now, this is extremely cool. So I'll try to explain this the best that I can. So the Polymoon has a built-in dynamic flanger as well as the phaser. Now, it's easiest to hear this if I turn off the phaser, so let's do that. And what this dynamic flanger does is you use the dynamics knob to basically control the intensity and the depth of it, and then the alt function to control the speed of the modulation, and then the dimension alt function to control whether or not that modulation is all the way to the right is an LFO for the flanger, to the left is an envelope that I believe is envelope down, and in the middle is an envelope for envelope up. So it sounds kind of weird, but basically we're creating a separate modulation channel for our modulation effective flanging on our modulation effective delay. So we're getting really crazy now. And that's not even including the phaser, which I have bypassed. So let's add some flanging in. Listen to that. Just sounds three-dimensional. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna turn it all the way up to LFO, which I like the best. And then let's play with the speed of the LFO. So at max, it's got that like really detuned, unpleasant chorusing sound. But hey, there's a time and a place for that. That would sound cool on percussion. And then on minimum, it's got that slow and spacey vibe, which we like. So let's turn it up kind of somewhere close to minimum, but not the very bottom. Ooh, I like that. Bring back in our phaser. There we go. Bypassed. Like night and day different. This is an entire effects chain of weirdness and greatness that we've just created on the fly to perfectly match our sound. All right, so I clearly got a little bit lost in the sauce there with the Polymoon, which I think completely proves my point. Why I love pedals so much is that they allow for these spontaneous instances of creativity like this, where essentially the Polymoon isn't just a delay pedal, it's an extension of my synthesizer instrument, and it's being played like a real instrument to create something that I'm hearing and imagining real time in the moment. That to me is the magic that I've still never really felt with plugins, and why effects pedals will always have an incredibly important place in my sound design and production. Alright, so hopefully that shows you guys why I love pedals so much and why they inspire me so much with their hands-on controls and intuitive, tangible nature. And also, why I love the Meris Polymoon so much. It's pretty quickly jumped up near the very top of my favorite pedals list, and I'll be holding on to that guy for a long time. But these are just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys like to use for effects? Pedals, plugins, outboard gear? I'd love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, check out my Patreon, and I'll see you guys next Friday for another video.